as hearing officer today. We have two cases, and the relevant exhibits are posted on the panel located directly behind me. Both of the cases on the agenda are variances. Under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.43 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a variance shall be granted if four required findings are present: that the strict application of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the general purposes and intent of the ordinance, that there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved or to the intended use or development of the property that do not apply generally to other property in the same zone or neighborhood, that the granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or neighborhood which the property is located in, and that the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. If the evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets the criteria just described, the zoning administrator can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by use of public notices which were mailed to property owners located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. Hearings will proceed as follows. First, I'll read a description of the application and request. I'll read the reports received from other city departments and other letters or communications from interested parties. The case planner will make a brief overview of the case, give analysis, and make a recommendation. The applicant will then be asked to come forward, stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. Others in support of or in opposition to the application and interested parties will be asked to come forward to speak, again clearly stating both name and address within a 3-minute time limit. Lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing arguments or rebuttal if desired in response to testimonies which are given by preceding speakers, and they will have 5 minutes for that rebuttal period. The hearing will be closed and the case taken under submission. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing, will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses and who have provided their name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Under the appeals provision of Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of decision. Anyone wishing to appeal may obtain forms and brochures on the procedures from Building and Safety Section Permit Services Center located on the same floor of this building. If you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of the speaker's forms, which have been provided by the front door, and submit it to our planning assistant. I would also like to inform everyone that the official proceedings of the zoning hearings are recorded on tape as part of the public record. Okay, so for the first case, it's located at 696 Glen Avenue, case PVAR 2009-038. The applicant is G. Nazarian. The owner is A. Kalesians. The case planner is Dennis Joe. This is an application for a setback variance to construct a 5-foot, 6-inch high split-face concrete block wall within the required 15-foot street front setback for an existing single-family residence located at 696 Glen Avenue within the R1R Restricted Residential Zone, Floor Area District 1, described as lots 22 and 23, Block E, tract number 7600. So first I'd like to take a look at the file and see what comments we have from other agencies. For comments from Public Works, there's a notation that the applicant shall remove the entire existing wooden retaining wall at portion of the existing concrete retaining wall encroaching within the public right-of-way. The unpaved portion of the parkway between the face of the proposed retaining wall and the back of curb shall be graded to a maximum slope of 2%. The proposed new gate shall be relocated so that stair steps may be provided for its access, all within private property. In fact, the gate also needs to be outside of the required setback. The removal of the existing wooden retaining wall along the southerly frontage of the property and the construction of the new concrete retaining wall will impact the existing slope on the adjoining property to the south, and the applicant shall address that issue at the same time and provide remedial measures to mitigate that condition. A grading drainage plan for the engineering division's review and approval is required to be submitted and made part of the retaining wall plans and building permit application. The plan should also include and show the remedial measures taken to mitigate the impact of the project will have on the existing slope and the adjoining slope on the property to the south. The method of discharge of on-site drainage shall be approved by the city engineer. All drainage toward the retaining wall shall be picked up by the concrete swales with approved graded inlet devices and conveyed to the street via sheet flow through the driveway apron or using cast iron pipes and parkway drains from the property line and exiting through the curb in accordance with the standard plans for public works construction. And then the applicant then would also be responsible for maintaining the street improvements, so they'd have to repair anything that's broken or damaged as part of the construction. And also I need to comply with the National Pollutions Discharge Elimination System, NPDES requirements. Just also another note that comes from traffic engineering, just to make sure that the new wall, retaining wall that is proposed would not impede site distance. So there's a note that they would need to check with the traffic department to make sure that the site distance is maintained. There is a note from Neighborhood Services that says they have an open code enforcement case on the property for constructing retaining walls without permits, and that a stop work was issued and the project is not complete. This variance application resulted from the code enforcement action, so approval of the request and required permits would be a means to correct the violation. It's just a note from Neighborhood Services for that. And I don't see any other major comments in the file regarding this project. Everything else seems to be pretty standard. So with that, I'd like to ask for a staff presentation.
Good morning, hearing officer. If I may approach the board.
Sure.
To provide information about the property, this is 696 Glen Avenue. It's within the R1R zone, and the surrounding properties are R1R also as well with single-family homes. To give background on the property, it's a one-story, 2,342 square foot single-family residence with a detached 372 two-car garage built in 1940. There's an existing swimming pool with a non-conforming street front setback of 13 feet 9 inches from the property line from Glen Avenue. There was a wooden fence that was constructed as a security barrier for the pool along the property line facing Glen Avenue. It is unclear whether it had a legal non-conforming status because fences under 6 feet did not require a permit. However, the wooden fence was removed, and the zoning code requirements do not allow walls, fences, and structures within the street front setback. On September 8th, 2009, Neighborhood Services had issued a violation letter for the retaining wall, which is in the public right-of-way, which we're not going to get into because it's under Public Works, and it's in the public right-of-way. Also, and for the constructed cinder block wall that's partially built within the front setback. The interdepartmental comments that you just have read were provided to the homeowner on December 1st, 2009.
Point of order. Could you speak slower? You have a hearing disabled person, audience.
Okay, just to let the public who may be watching this know, because they're not going to pick you up on a microphone, there's been a request that the presentation be a little slower because we do have people who are hearing impaired in the audience.
Thank you.
I'm going to go into the analysis of the variance. Staff believes there's unique circumstances related to the development of the property that do not generally apply to other properties in the same zone or neighborhood. Given that the existing swimming pool has a non-conforming setback of 13 feet 9 inches, if a split-face block wall were to be constructed beyond or at 15 feet to comply with current code, the wall would be above and across in the pool. Although the staff believes that it would be illogical, staff does believe there's special that is a unique circumstance. The other alternatives would be to either partially demolish or reduce the volume of the pool, but that would be such an extreme measure, staff doesn't recommend it, as it would be a necessary hardship. Per the Building and Safety Division, a security barrier is required for all pools to provide a barrier between the public and this private pool for safety precautions. While a zero setback is proposed, staff recommends that the wall be set back a reasonable distance, which I will get into later in my presentation. Additional concerns have been provided by Building and Safety for a vertical load of a block wall if it were to be close to the proximity of the pool. And that's dependent on the depth of the pool and the distance of the block wall, which I'll further go into staff's recommendation on how to further mitigate that. Staff recommends for this proposed wall or barrier to be set 10 feet away from the property line along Glen Avenue, and also to be constructed with quality materials that will not have a negative impact or the vertical load on the existing pool, with such materials such as wood or a combination of wrought iron and a split-face concrete block pilasters. As conditions, staff believes the requested minor setback deviation from the code will provide adequate amount of open area with landscaping, facilitate a reasonable circulation area around the pool, and accommodate the property with the required security barrier required by the building department. Photographs of the immediate neighborhood demonstrate there's lush vegetation around the up and down the neighborhood. Staff recommends drought-tolerant shrubs and bushes shall be planted in front of the barrier to soften the appearance and to provide a visual connect with the surrounding properties. The intent of the required street front setback is to present an open, unobstructed area along the street to enhance the appeal and integrate the properties to form a visual harmonious neighborhood. Staff believes approval of this application will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or neighborhood, provided that a non-conforming wood fence once existed and there is an existing pool with a non-conforming street front setback. Approval of a security barrier with the recommended conditions with an overall improvement would be an overall improvement to the neighborhood as conditioned, will provide an opportunity for additional landscaping. Granting this request is not believed to be contrary to the objectives of the code because the project does not propose to expand any floor area to the existing home or intensify the land use, and the existing property will remain its single-family use. Staff believes that all the findings can be made in a positive manner due to the project's small scale. Staff recommends approval of this variance with the suggested conditions that the proposed barrier shall be set back 10 feet from Glen Avenue. That condition number 2, that the proposed barrier shall be constructed in materials that will not impose an additional load compromising the structural integrity of the pool. Materials of the barrier shall be satisfactory to the building official and senior urban designer. Condition number 3, that a landscape plan be provided with drought-tolerant shrubs and bushes, which shall be planted in front and along the entire proposed barrier to soften the appearance. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant and the homeowners present.
Okay, thanks. And Dennis, I just have a question about the pool. You said that it set back about approximately 13 feet.
13 feet 9 inches.
Was there a variance granted for the location of the pool?
There were no record within our planning files. However, I did find a building permit back in 1950, around that proximity of time.
Okay.
For the pool.
So the pool has a permit, no record of any permit at all for a fence or a wall in that area?
No, there were no records of a permit for the fence.
Are there any other variances approved for that property?
There is an older one for a 15-foot setback. I don't remember the date. I can grab that from. It's mentioned in the staff. Well, I believe it's mentioned in the staff report. But the setback currently by current code today is 15 feet in the R1R zone.
Was that 15 feet for the house?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, with that, I don't have any further questions for staff. I'd like to call up the applicant. Is it Garo? Yeah, Garo Manassian, please. Or Nazarian, sorry.
Good morning. My name is Garo Nazarian with Domus Design, 109 East Harvard Street, Suite 306. The proposed project is within a residential area and consists of the single-family dwelling with a legal pool in the front of the property. From many decades, there has been a wooden fence on the property line providing the necessary safety factor for the existing pool. The fence over the years deteriorated and was both aesthetically and as well actually an eyesore, not repairable and beyond salvage. The current new owner of the property proposes to replace the same with a more permanent construction material that is with a concrete block wall. So we request to be allowed to replace the deteriorated and demolished wood fence with a new concrete split-face block wall that it's provide that building department requirement for the safety of the pool. And the present use of the building, it's a single-family residence, and it remains same. So there is no change of use or any addition, more floor area on for the project. The findings, the proposed wall is only a replacement of the existing old fence wall, and it is required by code to enclose any pool area. In this case, it is in the front yard of the property. The setback from the edge of the pool to the property line is 13 feet 9 inches. The required setback is 15 feet. This means that the strict application of the code would result the pool enclosure to pass through the pool itself. Furthermore, the proposed location, while containing the decades-long history, provides a usable space around the pool. Finding number 2. First of all, existing property is actually developed upon 2 different parcels that were tied together to allow essentially the construction of a house and on one parcel and the pool on all the amenities on the second lot. The shape of the lot itself is irregular with a very substantial front property line that tapers toward the end of the lot. There is an existing pool on the side of the house, but it results essentially to be in the front yard of the property by legal definition. The old fence was on the property line, and we propose mainly to replace it. The pool does require by code to be enclosed, and it's very, very rare and unique that the 2 lots are tied together to allow for a single-family dwelling with the house on one parcel and the pool on the front of the portion of the property on the other side. The effect of the granting of the variance will be none. The house, the pool, and the front smaller retaining wall are existing and will be there regardless. The proposed wall is only upgrading the previous structure. It will be by current code, and aesthetically it will be more pleasant than the previous fence wall. It does not add to the use, density, or impact of the project area. By current state and the municipal code, all pools must be enclosed and protected with the fence. In this particular case, the objectives of the ordinance were met with an older, totally deteriorated wood fence. The current project is proposing to replace it with a more permanent, better-looking concrete split-face block wall. And I did review the comments and even the staff recommendation that to keep the fence, the wall set back from the property line. And because this is, first of all, it's a high fire hazard area, and we are trying to get away from the wood construction, and for the pool area privacy too, the owner, they don't like the the railing, wrought iron or whatever, just to enclose. They are young couples, and in the future they will have maybe few kids, and they want to enjoy the pool area. But by pushing the wall back, as Dennis was talking about the integrity of the pool, if I push the wall closer to the wall itself, it will surcharge the pool wall, and that it will damage the pool itself. So that having 3 feet setback, first of all, for the integrity of the pool is not correct. And the second, having a 3 feet passageway around the pool is not practical, especially with the young couples and the kids. So for that, we request to have the permission to be permitted that we replace the existing demolished wood fence with the split-face concrete block wall. And we did reach the neighbors, and I do have some supportive letters, from the neighbors that we could reach them. So I have about 10, 11 neighbors that we discussed the project with them, and we showed them that what we are requesting, there is no objection, and everybody supports the project. And the comment from the Public Works, when I reviewed, the wooden retaining walls on the public right-of-way, which is not the property owners, in control of the property owners, that has been asked to be removed, and the 2% slope, the sidewalk creating, that for me, that is an issue that it's all depend to the design of the sidewalk, but just looking very quickly to the plans, by creating a sidewalk on the street level, it will add about 4.5 feet more to the height of the wall, which it will be maybe not acceptable, because 4 feet plus then 5 feet fence wall, it will be a total about 9.5, 10 feet wall. On the section, you can see that the street level, it's about 4 feet below the site level.
You're talking about right in here, in this area?
Can I approach?
Yeah, please. I don't know if I'm understanding exactly what.
Yes, we are talking this area. Okay.
Right.
There, I do have a section provided that it shows the street level, it's 97.1. The side, the pool area deck, it's on the 101. By creating a sidewalk here, I will add about 4 feet to this height of the wall. And it's not practical. I do have pictures that it shows actually in that area there is no.
Well, if you move the wall back, and then could you grade so you eliminate the need for a retaining wall in this area?
But actually, the wall that I'm proposing is not a retaining wall, it's a fence wall.
I know, but if you do what engineering is asking you to do, is it possible to do a little more grading and eliminate the need for a wall completely in that area? And then you could have your garden wall that wouldn't require there to be any sort of wall in the right of way?
They are asking, the slope, it will cut a lot from this area, and it will be very narrow area left in the side of the pool for the passing around.
What's the minimum distance you need to avoid the surcharge on the pool wall?
The pool, I left a message, I gave the information to Dennis, the pool, it's 11 feet deep here. So the surcharge, it goes 45 degree angle. It's 1-to-1. I need minimum 11-foot distance from the edge of the pool, not
avoid
to
the
surcharge the pool.
With a wall.
With
If
the
you
wall.
put a fence in, then it's not a problem, correct?
Yes.
If I may add, because you used an exhibit, and the hearing officer did review it, part of the discussion, if we can have the exhibit you just showed her as far as the sectional?
Yeah,
Thank you.
And I did took some pictures this morning regarding the comments that I reviewed, we received from the Public Works, that it says to remove the wooden block wall.
Like the railroad ties?
Beg your
The
pardon?
railroad ties,
Yes,
the wooden
yeah.
railroad ties?
And change it to the concrete block wall. And that, just, I do have a picture here. Which they are talking about this wooden retaining walls, which they asking to replace with the concrete and go
Correct.
back that way. It will create about 7-foot high retaining wall in the public right of way. And if you check the street, actually in that street there is no sidewalk. And I do have a picture of the neighbors, which actually there is a retaining wall constructed exactly by the curb. And just having that sidewalk, if it's doable to do it, it will be just in the front of our property. And there are other structures that the garage of these neighbors, it has been built almost on the property line. I will submit these pictures to you too.
Okay.
Those are the
Thanks.
sections actually.
Thank you.
Well, have you met with Rubik or anybody from engineering to talk about a design or work out a solution, or is it, are you just waiting for this hearing?
Not yet, because when I received these comments, I tried to meet with them. It was not possible. But about 2 months ago, I tried to have a meeting with the Ruben to discuss this issue. They told me he can't meet you. They gave me name of the, again, from the public department. I met with somebody, I can't recall the name. We discussed it, but we didn't reach to we didn't get anywhere. And now I received these comments, I will try. But one thing that I will request, the comments I respect, and if it's doable, we will do it. But if I would like, even this case it's approved, to have a language to leave open that Public Works comment that we should get an approval from Public Works. But if it doesn't work the way that they are asking here, the comments here, it will be any changes, any approval from the Public Works, it will be okay for the variance approval, because I don't want to come back here again for the variance if I can't, or we can understand with the Public Works that the comments that they gave is not doable. If there is any changes in their comments, I don't want to come back again here for the variance to be heard again.
Okay. So if we put on a condition of approval that said you can have a wall, or if you can't get the wall because of the church surcharge, or you're not able to solve that problem, you can put a fence in at 3 feet off the water line, 10-foot setback. And then we have a condition that says that you satisfy Public Works within the right-of-way, and that you provide, to the satisfaction of Public Works, a solution to the problem with your neighbor's property, because it looks like there is an issue where you have the retaining wall, or I would hesitate to call it retaining wall, you have the railroad ties on your property that it looks like they're affecting the neighbor's property. If you address that to the satisfaction of Public Works, would that be acceptable?
But it's acceptable. The only thing that is not acceptable, that keeping, having the, let's say, fence wall 3 feet from the pool. That is really, it's 3 feet, it's too small area. To pushing the wall back 10 feet and to keep just the 3 feet, when you have small kids there, they are running around, that 3 feet really, it's not good.
Okay.
And really, that our request, I did check, I did review the neighbors' properties. I can tell it's something common in that area, that they have walls or even the structures, garage structure or even building up to the property line. They are. You can see on the pictures.
Okay. Did you have any
Do you
other
have any other
comments?
question? No.
No, anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
Well, maybe you know about the history. Do you know if there was a variance issued for the pool itself, the location of the
No,
pool?
for the pool, there was no variance filed or approved, but for the main building, the house itself, because in that time, the front setback was 20 feet.
20 feet, and it's
They
50.
asked a 15-feet front setback variance, which today it complies with the today code, 15-feet setback.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
And thanks. I have no further questions for Mr. Nazarian. I have one more speaker's card for Dick Matthews.
Good rainy morning.
Good morning.
My name is Dick Matthews, and I own a property which is immediately adjacent to the property in question.
Okay.
And I am probably the oldest person there, and maybe not in age, but in terms of owning property there, which has been over 41 years. By way of background, I am currently a member of the California Public Utilities Commission, California Teleconnect Fund. I'm a past chairman of the California Relay Service Advisory Committee and a former city council candidate of some time ago, which I think qualifies me for knowing a few things, if not all, very few things about the operation of the city. And also, I'm a retired vice president for Nestle USA. And that said, by way of history, I knew the owner of the property, who built the property, Dr. Gene Jorgensen, who was a prominent surgeon in Glendale and throughout the Southern California community. They were beloved neighbors for many years. And I know that Dr. Jorgensen, when he built the property, and the Dawsons, Bert Dawson's the property that's on the other side of the pool area, they both owned where the pool area is, and they decided that Gene was going to buy the property from Bert and put the pool in. And I'm certain that when that pool was put in by Dr. Jorgensen, all of the rules and regulations regarding the city and the setbacks were complied with. It is regretful that the city does not have a complete backlog of the variances, because there could be a question raised. I'm certain, knowing the status of Dr. Jorgensen, that all of the rules at that current time would have been prevailed upon. Now, Glen Avenue is kind of a unique little community about 1 block long, and one of the problems with Glen Avenue is that there are no sidewalks. There are no sidewalks on either side of the street, and it's a narrow street. And of course, when we bought property there, we knew that. And so we're not asking to put in sidewalks. But in this particular situation, I think strong consideration should be given to the fact that there are no sidewalks, and that would behoove a consideration for a variance. And one of the great things about our American society is that we have the rules and regulations, but we also have the freedom of being able to do what we're trying to do today, which is to consider a variance. Now, last summer, a main water line was put in on Glen Avenue, which tore the whole street up, and it was totally impassable because of the size of the street and no sidewalks, etc. And there was a little mistake made there because the water mains were increased in size to have ample water in case there was a fire in the area. But the city neglected to put a fire hydrant at the end of the street, which means that there's a considerable length of street not covered. But that being the way things are within the city, things happen, and regretfully. But one of the problems was, if we're looking at the appearance of the committee, and how many people here within the structure here have actually visited the property area? You've seen it, so you know what I'm talking about.
I believe there's a hydrant.
Pardon me?
I believe there's a hydrant right next to the property.
That's the only one. That's it. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 homes at a dead-end street with no fire hydrant. So I know it's not the aegis of this committee to consider it, but I think one thing in terms of city regulation, it might have been a little bit better to have put a fire hydrant at the end of the street because there isn't any. Now, you may have noticed also that the patchwork on the street is not particularly attractive. And I think the problem is that the city forgot to budget a street resurfacing. Now, that means that the street is somewhat uneven and what have you. Now, given that, when I walk my legal guide dog here on the street, as well as every other resident on that street, they have to walk on the street to exit the street or go any other place they want to go, which means that they're subject to traffic. And cars come up that hill at a rather rapid speed, and it can be dangerous at times because there's no sidewalks. We take precautions. We do our own variance type of work. We have a flashlight at night so that if there's a car coming up, we will flash the flashlight. Now, I'm getting to the point about this variance is that we as neighbors have made considerations due to the topography and the arrangement of the street. And it's quite of a small little community. If someone is having a get-together or an occasion where there are, more people on the street in a residence, we will give a note to all of the neighbors saying that we're having a family reception, say, on Saturday, and the parking may be bad. And, the nice thing about it is we take that into consideration. We could call the city and the police department when there are cars parked illegally, but, why bother? It's just an occasion, and they had the courtesy to advise another person about what's going on. That's the type of community that we have. Now, given that said, that there's no sidewalk, and the application to improve Dr. Jorgensen's property with this a wall, I think, in my opinion, is entirely appropriate. I think in some ways the staff observations are trying to bring a property that was built 60 years ago up to the regulations of 2010. And I think that there has to be some sort of consideration given in that area because, after all, we could go throughout the entire city of Glendale and restructure the entire city if we're going to follow the 2010 guidelines. So I think we have to be somewhat reasonable when a variance application like this is made. And the current owner of the property, in my opinion, is enhancing the appearance of the community, given the fact that there's no sidewalk and that there are issues that should be taken into strong consideration on the part of the city. There was a fence there that Dr. Jorgensen put up to shield the pool, and obviously anybody that has a pool these days has to construct the thing in such a way that little children can't wander onto the property. We all know that. And I know that those regulations are being followed. The unfortunate part about all this is that the construction progress has been stopped for, I don't know, 6 months or so, and it has been a genuine eyesore in the area. You saw it. What did you think? Was it
No, it looks like
very...
it's under construction.
Pardon me?
Looks like it's under construction.
Yeah, kind of terribly with all the yellow lines. So we're looking forward to a resolution of this, and for my standpoint, I'm looking forward to a resolution that not only enhances the viewpoint of the property, but also enhances the entire neighborhood. And I think that the owner has made a definite commitment to do that type of enhancement. I don't think it's reasonable to ask that the pool be moved back because, frankly, the pool was built 60 years ago. And as I said earlier, if we're going to do that, let's do the whole city. But getting back to Glen Avenue, I think with the current owner has made a reasonable and an attractive accommodation to improve the overall appearance of the house itself, which he's done, and to also establish a fence. There's a problem there because there's no sidewalk, so how does he get into the yard? And, you know, as you saw, there's a very short area there, and what he's trying to do is make it pleasingly attractive, but at the same time, be able to get into the yard. So, all that said, I'd like to ask that the committee, is there more than just one person on the committee? How many?
There's one person.
Pardon me?
There's me.
Oh,
That's it.
I'm sorry. Okay, Laura, thank you. I'd like to ask that me, Laura, the committee strongly consider the fact that it's an unusual situation and that all of us as neighbors have attempted to accommodate one another. And it was very pleasing when the applicant made this application to improve the appearance of the property. I think one mistake was made, of course, and we all make them at times, was that he should have appeared before you first. That's a lesson learned, but that's water under the bridge, so to speak, and that I appreciate the committee looking at his plans. From what I understand, they're extremely professional. They are professional in appearance and in design. And I think it would enhance the neighborhood with the consideration that somehow he has to get into that pool. And I think that, personally, my opinion, is that where the previous fence was, Dr. Jorgensen put in there, is a reasonable place to put another fence. He's just replacing one that was old and dilapidated and, 60 years old, could be replaced, and that's what the applicant is doing. So I appreciate your consideration. I appreciate your work, and I would certainly appreciate your consideration of all the neighbors that live on Glen Avenue, because I believe we've all signed a sheet saying that we approve what the applicant is doing, and to take into consideration this wonderful factor of a variance application in unusual circumstances. I wouldn't be standing here if the property, everything complied to the current rules, because I would have no argument. But I would like to argue the point that we have an unusual situation. We have not requested the city to put sidewalks in, etc. I would like the city, I know this is not the behoovement of your committee, to strongly consider the resurfacing of the street, because frankly it's ugly, and I have a walking problem at night or during the day, and an uneven street looking the way it is not up to what I think what the type of Glendale building standards that you want to maintain. So I appreciate your work, and I would appreciate your strong consideration. And my legal guide dog, Dwight, would also like to say thank you for improving the appearance of the city by taking into consideration the application and passing with approval the variance.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Matthews. Then we have a period for rebuttal. Is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Nazarian? No? Seeing no. With that, after hearing the testimony and considering the plans and the information provided, I just want to say, what are the options we have now under the new hearing procedures? We can make a decision at the meeting. However, we will have to write up a written decision afterwards, and that the actual date of the decision will be the date on the letter that is being issued. I can tell you right now, my intent is to approve this project. However, I will approve it subject to the conditions of approval recommended by staff. I do believe there is definitely, a permit was issued for the pool, and we are looking at a permit that was probably over 50 years ago. We're looking at a pool that definitely needs to have a security fence of some sort. So the question is, should it be on the property line or should it be set back? And I don't see any reason, other than it was there before, to support having a fence on the property line. The code is the way it is. It does require setbacks. I'm in favor of allowing either a wall, if you can meet the requirements of the surcharge, or a fence, either one, but I'm recommending that it be set back 10 feet from the property line and that there be landscaping in front of it. And then in addition, I also recommend that you work with engineering department to work out the conditions that Rubik's department had concerns with, for not only where the walls are, the railroad tie walls next to the neighbors, but also in front of the property itself, right in here. You need to work out that condition with Rubik. We can leave a general condition, so there'll be some flexibility for you to address that with retaining walls. But it is my intent to prove that I do believe I heard the findings made for that. It's just the actual location of the wall, and I understand that's not what you want to hear. I understand that you're going to have an objection to that. However, that will be my recommendation, and that will be in my approval letter.
Or can you
So thanks.
reconsider that instead of the 10 feet, just at least a 7 feet setback, which I will have about 6 feet around the pool area, that it will be very nice.
I'll consider it.
Thank you.
Okay. That concludes that case. We're moving on to the next one. Let me get the paperwork in order here. Okay, the next case we have before us is located at 1244 Berkeley Drive. It's case PVAR 2009-041. The applicant is V. Barbieri, owner is J. Barbieri, case planner is Dennis Joe. This is an application for a standards variance to construct a two-story, 953 square foot addition to an existing 1,170 square foot single-family residence with a legal non-conforming 4 foot 0 inches interior setback located at 1244 Berkeley Drive within the R1R restricted residential zone, floor area District 3, described as Lot A, parcel map 1477. The comments received from other departments. First of all, I should say we have received 3 letters that came, or emails rather, that came in since last night. So we just received them. I'll read those in a minute. Let me read comments from other departments first. Okay, I see no comments from other departments. Now, the first email that we received was from Ron D. Werner, the Vice President of the Adams Hill Neighborhood Association. She writes, on behalf of the Adams Hill Neighborhood Association, I'm writing to oppose the variance application at 1244 Berkeley Drive. Says the project is located in a restricted residential zone, which is designated as such because it is deemed to be particularly vulnerable to overbuilding. There's a severe lack of parking in the area that your report does not address. That's referring to the staff report. There is the proposed near doubling of the livable area does not include one additional off-street parking space. It says this project is insensitive to the existing housing by increasing noise levels, overcrowding, and intrusions of privacy. And it says often the tiny setbacks are the only areas that pedestrians can use to dive out of the way of oncoming traffic. It says, quoting from your staff report, the interior setback requirement set forth by the zoning code serves to promote a privacy separation, light, noise, and air buffer and produce a physical relationship between adjacent properties. And yet this proposed project seeks to intrude on all these measures. It is easy to state the granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements of such zone or neighborhood in which the property is located when you're not among the homeowners living nearby. The neighborhood begs to differ and urges you to reconsider your apparent eagerness to approve this development. Adams Hill has been hard hit in recent years by developers seeking to swoop in for a quick flip at the expense of those who are in this neighborhood for the long haul, and the time has come to end this destructive profiteering. No one seems to be considering the practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship endured by those who live near the project. It is apparently only the developers' hardships that are given any consideration. Residents are doomed to live with the consequences while the developer has moved on to the next unsuspecting neighborhood have been overlooked. This 12-inch variance may not seem like much, but is literally the first foot on a path toward a tragic and undoable outcome in the long run. Please consider the residents of historic Adams Hill when reviewing this variance request. So, again, that was Ron D. Werner, Vice President of the Adams Hill Neighborhood Association. We also have an email from Romina Arguedas. She lives at 1405 Stanford. I believe that's an adjacent street. I am writing to object to a granting of the setback request in the above-mentioned case. My objection is due to the fact that the proposed addition is of such a large scale, essentially almost doubling the square footage of the current building. I am concerned that if the variance request is granted and the addition constructed, in totality, the visual effect from the street will be of an overwhelming and massive building instead of the attractive, modest bungalow we have now. I also do not feel that denying the variance will be a hardship for the owner, who is, after all, a developer who will not be living in the property, nor will have to deal with the results as the neighborhood will have to. Okay, so that's her letter. And then we have another email received from Lynn Carr, a homeowner at 1433 Marion Drive. I received the notice of the public hearing regarding case PBAR 2009-0141. I will be unable to attend the meeting. I am writing to notify you that I am adamantly opposed to the construction of a second-story addition at 1244 Berkeley for the following reasons. Most of the residents in Adams Hill buy their homes because of the beautiful views. The lots are small and lack of parking is an issue on the hill. Building larger homes negatively impacts the limited available parking, and overall negative impact on the quality of life for the residents of Adams Hill. So that's the three letters that we've received on the project. With that, I'd like to ask the case planner to provide a presentation.
Thank you, hearing officer. Once again, this is a setback variance to construct a two-story, 953-square-foot addition to an existing one-story, 1,170-square-foot single-family residence configured with a 4-foot interior setback when 5 feet is required from the height extension proposed. The general plan of the lot is residential low density. The zoning, as well as surrounding properties, are R1R. The description of the property is an irregular in shape, and has a topography of that slopes upward from the front to the rear. Access to the property is taken from Berkeley Drive. On to my analysis of the request. The subject property is developed with an existing one-story single-family residence constructed in 1922. The residence is currently configured with a street front setback of 15 feet, an interior setback of 4 feet, 11 feet, and 20 feet. That is from the north, east, and south, respectively. The project for the expansion of the floor area is particularly at the south portions only. The project will not extend over any existing areas. The overall height will be 28 feet 3 inches. Because the home will be above 20 feet and below 30 feet, the zoning code requires for the minimum 5 feet interior setback for the entire home. As a result, the interior setback for the existing portion of the home along the north property line will no longer conform with zoning code standards. Staff believes the strict application of the code will result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardships inconsistent with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance. In order for the home to comply, a 1 foot reduction for the entire length of the existing building, which is 45 feet 7 inches, will have to be reduced along the north elevation, which is the existing portion where the expansion is not going to be taking place. To accomplish this demolition, approximately 46 square feet of the existing home will have to be demolished. It is believed that the overall structural integrity of the building will have to be reevaluated if this partial reduction is going to be required. There has been recently issued permits for a ground level addition of 105 square feet for the kitchen at the rear, which had a 4 foot interior setback along the north property line. The amount of the area that encroaches will be about 7.5 square feet within the 5 foot required setback as required by this expansion. It is not believed the request will be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property, as the 4 foot setback along north property line already exists. The proposed 2-story addition will be set back approximately 31 feet 9 inches away from the affected setback. The areas within the affected interior setback will maintain their 1-story configuration and will preserve their uses as a living room, a dining room, and a kitchen. And approval of this application will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance, since the project will maintain the single-family land use of the property and does not propose to modify the existing residence within the affected interior setback. The intent of the interior setback requirement is to promote privacy, separation, light, noise, and air buffer, and to produce a physical relationship between the adjacent uses. The requested minor deviation and the existing home will maintain the objective of the ordinance of the zoning code, since the areas within the affected setback will remain unchanged. In any regards, the proposed development to the property is located away from the affected setback, and the existing portion of the home along the north property line will remain its 1-story configuration. Staff's recommendation is recommends to approve this application. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant and the homeowner is present. Staff is available for questions.
Do you have a survey for this property? Has one been submitted to you?
Staff does not have a survey of the property.
Okay. I don't have any questions right now. I'd like to call up the applicant, the speaker, Ms. Vicky Barbieri.
Good morning. I'm Vicky Barbieri. I'm the architect for the project and the applicant. Dennis has done such a magnificent explanation of the project that in reality I don't have too much to add. The only thing that I really would like to add is that I'm very conscious in the site planning of a project, because I know very well the regulations of the city, but more than that, because I'm very respectful of what the neighbors affected by the projects could be. And because they are going to be my neighbors, I'm going to be living in the property. This is why the 2-story addition, I designed it in purpose against the hill of the lot. In that way, it wouldn't affect the privacy of the view of the only neighbor that we have, that is the one above us, because next to the addition is a portion of land that belongs to the neighbor in the top that never could be built or never could be subdivided, because it doesn't comply with the minimum width for a subdivided lot and doesn't comply for the minimum square footage. Then that piece of land next to us, is very good for us, because it gave us like a free piece of land to look at, and we don't have no neighbors. Anyway, I don't really have any more to say unless...
Well, I do have some questions for you, because I was out at the site, and I'll tell you what I saw that I just want to have this clarified, because when I look at your site plan and then I look at what I saw out there, they don't seem to match. That's why I'm concerned if you had a survey that you could submit, because I'd like to take a look at it. In this area right in here, it looks like there's a fence that's been constructed. It's not shown on here. I believe it's on your property. Also, I believe this is your addition, correct, that you're
Yes.
working on right now? It looked like there's an area, there's definitely wiring, plumbing that's coming out, so that I'm assuming that you're going to put electrical equipment in this area, but it's not shown on the plans here, and the fence isn't shown on the plans. The reason this concerns me is that if you're building, you're connecting onto the existing building, I'm worried about, well, how are actually people going to have ingress, egress if there's a fire or something like that, fire access? I realize that's not normally our concern, except for the fact that this is a setback reduction that you're asking for, and these are things that would impede the setback the way it is right now. So that is a concern for me. Even if you just add a single story, it's still a concern of, it's just not shown here. So I'd like to have an adequate drawing that just shows what's really going on here today. And I realize this is, I realize there's a couple of building permits that are going on out here, but that is one of the concerns I have. Another concern I have is with is this your fence too? I wasn't sure if this is your fence or if this is the neighbor's fence. So I'd just like to know who built it. Is it on the property line? Is it adequate? Are you even aware that the fence is there? You may not know it. So I just wanted that clarified. And then it also looks like we have two different building permits in effect. You can correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like you have one building permit for the garage and another building permit for the rear addition, which meets the code now because it's only 1 story. So 4-foot setback is fine if it's really 4 feet. The question I have with the garage is the permit that I saw was for a carport, and it looks like now you're doing a detached garage. I just wanted to verify was that allowed, or did somebody sign that off to allow that to be a garage rather than a carport, because the existing permits appear to be for a carport.
If staff can kind of chime in on there is an existing building permit, BC 2009-0426, which was to have the, 2009-0935 for the 2-car garage. It was reviewed by the zoning administrator by staff during its submittal, and it was considered by the zoning administrator as 2-car garage, which staff did approve, and that's why they are in process of constructing this, or actually working on this 2-car garage.
Okay, so I'm just verifying that that's not a zoning issue for this case then, if that's already been addressed. The other question I had is how close is this building to the garage, and how close is your new addition to the garage? I'm concerned that for the calculation of height, if it's less than 5 feet between the structures, then the height calculation would need to be not just from the bottom of this structure, but also from the bottom of the garage. So what is the closest point here?
5 feet.
It is 5 feet, even with your overhangs?
Yes. First of all, we don't have overhang in the existing buildings, in
Right.
the garage. We don't have the building is built with no overhangs, and it has been verified by the surveyor, and is in our survey.
The existing one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, under the proposal, because I'm looking here and it looks like this is the wall. I'm assuming that, maybe I'm wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, but when I look at this, I see landscape patio and I see a wall in here with a slider, which appears to be this wall with a slider.
Yes.
And then I have an overhang.
Yes.
Well, if the back of the wall here to the wall here is 5 feet, because
Yes.
that's what's here, then you do have an overhang and this would be less than 5 feet, correct? Or am I reading that wrong?
No, the overhang is going to be aligning with the back wall of the garage, only that is separated vertically 8 feet.
Okay, so plan view, there's no separation. Correct? When I look at it, it's overhanging. The only separation is you can walk under it, but visually when you look at it, you're going to see the mass as one building, correct? From the street. It's going to look like one building. There's less than 5 feet.
Well, it wouldn't look like one building, and I don't have, I think, a rendering here, because in the first floor, there are different levels. The garage roof finished at one level, and then the first floor that is a 5-foot separation, is on another level, and then the overhang come again at 5 feet. What it means, there are many planes, vertical and horizontally, what doesn't make the building look like a solid building.
Right, but when we look at the plan
From above?
and view,
From above,
it's less than 5 feet, correct?
yes.
Okay. I would like to see a cross-section that just shows how far this really is, because I'm concerned, I'm going to go through and look at the code again, because the way I read the code is that it's less than 5 feet. Therefore, the way the height is calculated is incorrect. And it may actually be taller based on just the code than 28.9 feet. It might actually be more like at least 30 feet. The reason I'm concerned about 30 feet is if it's a 30-foot height now from the bottom of your garage to the top of your proposed building, now we're not looking at a 4-foot setback, we're looking at a 6-foot setback. And that would be a 6-foot setback not only for your northerly wall, but also for your garage, which is now no longer detached, but part of your house. So I'm concerned about the zoning. If we have the correct entitlements, I just think maybe a little more investigation is needed there. I'd just like to have, I think maybe a survey could clear up some of this on whether we really have 4 feet in this location here, just because we have the fencing and then the electric equipment that appears to be installed. Right now, there's just piping. I don't see the installation, but I believe it's going to be put in. I'll take questions in a minute. And then the other question I do have is there's a gate that's shown. I didn't see a request for a gate in the front setback, so that would probably need to be eliminated or that could be conditioned. And just another question I would have is just when you go through why this property is unique. Every other property in the area, especially on this side, I do agree a lot of them are 2 stories. Most of them are actually up the street past this. But what makes your property unique here? And how come you need to have a 2nd-story addition? You can't just add on to the back, further on into the back of the property. Is there something else going on here that makes it so you can't add in the back?
Okay. I can start answering. In reference to that wood fence in the back, I believe it's in the property line. Hasn't been built by us.
Okay.
I have no idea who built it. Looks pretty new. I have to assume that my neighbors are the one who built that fence.
Yeah, it looks brand new.
At some point. We didn't build it. I
Okay.
don't know if we only bought the house maybe 6 months ago, what it
Okay.
means that I don't know if the previous owner of this property built that fence or the neighbor build a fence.
Do you know if their survey that you did shows the fence or not? Or was it your survey done before the fence was constructed?
No, it was after the fence was constructed.
Okay, so then the
And
fence
it
is
show
shown.
a fence in my survey. I don't know if you will have it because I provided, but it showed the fence on the side and showed the fence on the back. I checked yesterday in the survey.
Does it show that it's set back 4 feet? The fence is set back 4 feet from your structure?
If they specifically show, I know that the building is at 4 feet, and I need to look again and see if the fence is exactly in the property line,
Okay.
to be if it's the 4 feet. That is one of the issues. The other issue has to do with, and I got lost with so many issues.
Sorry, I'm concerned about the height and the distance between where the garage is to your addition.
Okay.
So if it's not the existing development that triggers the height, it might be this new one, because that's my concern looking at it. I just want to make sure we have all of the variance requests that we need when we process it, that we don't only approve some when you still need others.
And I understand. When I started with this project, I have a meeting with Dennis and Villia, showing from the beginning what I was planning to do, and about those 5 feet. Their interpretation that I follow was in vertical, horizontally in this case, I need to be 5 feet around, like 180 or 360 from the point of the back of the garage.
Okay.
This is why I set the building in the first floor 5 feet, but I overhang the building in the top 5 feet because my distance vertically from the top of the garage to that overhang
It's 5 feet.
over more than 5 feet.
Okay.
This is why we had the pass underneath. And this is the reason for the interpretation that we receive is that I continue with the project in that manner.
Okay.
What was the second question? This is why
Oh, the height.
consider the building, the addition, with the existing house separated from the garage. Then our height is from 5 feet. I mean, we have plenty of height from the original house 5 feet to that side where we touch the ground to the maximum point in the addition. We have 20, cannot remember, but is where it's less than the 25 feet, I think, that where the setback would be required 6 feet.
Okay.
In reference what is special on the lot, first of all, the lot has a flat area, and you visit the house, the property. Then we have the flat area in the front where the house was built, behind the garage, a certain flat area. And then really the lot goes in an up grading, very, very steep. That is number one. Number two, the whole lot has only one tree. And that is something that I try to preserve because the whole house only have one tree. And we trim it now, but when it grows, it's like a big umbrella for the lot. Then I try to protect the tree. I try to build in the area where I will disturb the grading the least as possible.
Okay.
And I wouldn't consider to build over the existing house because I would completely overview over my neighbor, and I will completely block the view from the neighbor on the back. Then that for me, the grading, the tree, the view of my neighbors, the privacy, is what makes for me in a unique circumstance to locate the property in 2-story over that side, because for us, it would be much cheaper to build it in 1-story than in 2-story. But then I would cut the tree and all the circumstances that I just explained that I thought they were, in this particular case, very important.
Okay. And then I'm just curious, are you proposing, I see you have a landscape plan. Are you proposing to put concrete all along the northerly wall in here? Are you going to pave all this?
No.
Or is it going to be landscape too?
Absolutely.
And then, as part of your calculation, because I noticed you have 42% landscape, and so you're really close to the maximum. My concern too was, this says landscape patio. Did you count this toward your landscaping area, and is this going to be paved? I'm assuming you're paving this as a patio.
Well,
Or is it
in
landscape?
reality, we don't want to pave it because we are going to have, no, I want to do it with stones and landscaping, make it look 5 feet of greenery in front of that bedroom.
Okay.
I don't want to put a whole cement in front of the bedroom. It's not the intent.
Okay. And do you have a calculation for the open space? On the lot, on landscaped open space? I'm just curious if you have that calculation, because I think it's really close, and I just want to verify, because I don't see it on your landscape plan.
But
That was a concern.
I know I was looking at my file, and I saw yesterday, and I know that we gave you, I don't know if I have it in front of you.
Submitted plans indicate that there is a ratio of 2,217 square feet to the size of the lot, which is 5,273 square feet, was the 42%. I know that's what you were mentioning earlier, but
Yeah, I'm just curious if that patio was included in it or not, or if it's going to be paved or not, because if you're going to have a building over it, does it count toward that or not? Because you do have even if it's not a height issue, it may be an open space issue, because you will have portion of the building over that area. So I'm just curious if that was included in your landscape calculation or not. When I see something called landscape patio, it just raises a concern. Is it really a patio that's paved, uncovered, or is it really landscaping?
I guess we can defer
can
that
verify
question to the
that.
applicant.
In
Yeah.
reality, it's going to be landscaping, and the only coverage that it is the overhang is open completely around. There is no enclosure in any. Three sides will be completely open. Only the back is the wall of the building, and it's covered with an overhang.
It's going to look out
curb
over
is-
the garage.
It's very open.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, if you don't have any other questions, I don't have really anything that I would like to add.
Well, I think I have all the questions asked, but I would like to receive a copy of the survey so I can see what it looks like. I would like to see a detail that shows how you figured out how far away the building is from the garage. I'd just like to see it, a cross-section, so I can run it by our zoning administrator. I guess it's now our director who will make the call. I'm just, I understand you had a meeting and you came up with that solution. That's not the way I read the code. So I'm just curious where that came from, and I'd like to verify that and just see how it will look. I just don't have that level of detail here, that cross-section that would just, so if you just submit that detail. I don't see anybody else here unless you'd like to speak. I don't have a card for you.
Excuse me, before I leave, then you would like to have a survey?
I'd just like the copy of the survey you say you have.
Yes, I do.
And then I'd like to have a copy of just the cross-section to show where your new building, how the distance requirement is calculated.
Okay, very good. We will do that, and we will submit that immediately, because we have all that information. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay.
Hi.
Hi. And if you'll fill out a card later, I'm sorry, I don't have a card.
Sure thing. I'm Juan Barbieri, the homeowner and the architect's son.
Okay.
In our family, everything's a family project. So I may be the owner on paper, but it's really going to be her residence. Since some of the neighbors went on the record to say a few things, I'll just have a few comments and I won't take very long. I understand this is the protocol, but it's also incredibly frustrating when these neighbors have never really approached us or asked us what our intents were or what the design was going to be. They make a tremendous amount of assumptions based on maybe other things that neighbors have done in the past. I'll just, again, since they're on the record, Ms. Rondi said, often the tiny setbacks are the only areas that pedestrians can use to dive out of the way of oncoming traffic. As you clearly see, the variance that we're seeking has nothing to do with the curb, the street, the sidewalk. It has no impact with traffic. And she also makes a claim that we are developers seeking to swoop in for a quick flip. I only wish it were that easy these days, and I wish we could come in and flip something, but that's clearly not the case, as this is going to be our primary residence. And yes, we do function as developers from time to time, but even developers and architects deserve a place to live. So that's also not the case here. And well, that also addresses, I suppose, the comment from Ms. Arguedas. You had questions regarding the electrical stuff in the back corner. Those pipes that you saw is actually prior irrigation pipes that were put in previous to us.
That are coming out of the wall of your house?
Oh, coming out of the wall. That's a tankless water heater that will be
Okay.
placed on the wall.
So there'll be equipment outside then?
There will be a tankless water heater outside, yes.
Okay.
And that was checked with my building inspector and approved. in
I
terms
just
of-
want to make, I want to know what the distance requirement is, because I see a wooden fence, which isn't on the plan. Now I hear there's other equipment. I don't know, I didn't know what the equipment was.
Right,
but
right.
There's other equipment, I don't see it on the plan. And if that's the setback area that we need to maintain, I want to make sure that you actually have that setback.
Okay.
But
Okay.
that's my concern. It's accuracy of the plans, and just to make sure that you don't have problems down the road, and somebody asks, well, how come we weren't told that? So that's why I want to investigate it, make sure
Sure.
it looks fine here from what I see.
And regarding the egress to access the back property, we had researched the plan, and we had come up with a proposed access through the front and then in front of that garden patio behind the garage to access the entire backyard. And that was submitted to Inspector Halpert for his review yesterday. So I'm going to have him take a look and see
okay.
if that is adequate.
Okay,
And you had mentioned something about the front gate that's existing.
okay.
You'd said that we need to remove it. Is that the case? Or?
Well, you have gates in the front setback. In fact, I think that even might even be in the right of way.
That gate,
So
the
I just
swinging
wanted-
gate, that was there. That's been there since the beginning, but
Okay,
I don't know how
I
that.
know it's shown on the, it's shown on the elevations, but it's not drawn on the site plans. But
Okay.
it's the gate between the two pilasters. On the
pilasters
front
are fine, I just want to make sure that,
The gate,
fences in the front setback.
correct,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I just,
All right. Well,
I know that really wasn't what this was for, but, okay. Well, I just don't have any further questions. I would like further information to clarify it, because I think that might have an impact on which variances we need to ask for. So I'd like to take this case under submission. If there's any other comments you'd like to add, and just make sure we have a rebuttal. Then my intent is to take this under submission. How soon can you get the information for me?
Day or two
Today
today.
or tomorrow? If I continue this for 2 weeks, would that be fine? To get all the information, give us a chance to look at it? Okay, then my intent is to continue this case for 2 weeks to a date certain. That would put it at, is it February 3rd?
Today is February the 3rd.
Continue this to the regular zoning administrator's hearings, February 3rd.
one last comment. Over the weekend, we voluntarily erected story poles reflecting the volume of the second-story addition
Okay.
that were put up after your visit.
Yeah, I didn't see those,
So we put those up just primarily for the neighbor behind us who may have issue, but
in time for the rain.
yeah, in time for the rain. So we'll be happy to leave them up for another 2 weeks or whatever.
Oh, that's great. Then I'll make sure to go out there and take a look at those.
Sure.
Okay.
thing. I think it answered a lot of questions for a lot of
Okay, cool.
people. So in,
Well,
in a
that's
good
great.
way.
February 3rd without further public notice.
Without further public notice, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And the hearing is now officially closed. Thank you for coming.